Welcome back to TalkTensors. We always bring you the most impactful machine learning research, and today is no different. We're diving into a paper titled AI-Enabled Knowledge Sharing for Enhanced Collaboration and Decision-Making in Nonprofit Healthcare Organizations, a scoping review protocol.
That's a mouthful.
It is a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? But stick with us. This is about way more than just algorithms. This is about how AI can make a real difference, especially in places where resources are stretched thin.
Exactly. Like, think about organizations doing really important work, healthcare, limited budgets, maybe even facing cuts in funding. And then you layer on top of that the challenge of keeping everyone on the same page and making the smartest choices with the information they have. That's the problem this paper is digging into.
And they even specifically mention potential changes with USAID operations.
Yeah, that's a big one. USAID has been a major player in global health, so any shifts in their approach could have ripple effects for a lot of nonprofits.
So for our listeners, this paper is setting the stage for a deep dive into how AI could help these organizations navigate those changes, share knowledge more effectively, and make better decisions. But it's a protocol, right? Not finished study.
Right, it's like the blueprint. They're laying out their plan for a really thorough review of all the research that's already out there on this topic. And they're not cutting corners. They're using these guidelines called Prisma Square, which basically means they're being super systematic and transparent about how they're going to find and analyze all the relevant studies.
So they're not just cherry picking the results they like, they're casting a wide net, which I appreciate. What databases are they looking at?
PubMed, Scopus, IE, Explore, all the big ones in health and technology research. Oh, and Google Scholar, too, which is a good way to catch things that might not show up in those other more specialized databases.
Smart move.
Yeah.
And what kind of keywords are they using to make sure they're finding the right stuff?
Well, it's a mix of terms related to AI and machine learning techniques, knowledge sharing, nonprofit healthcare organizations, and then also keywords connected to the theoretical frameworks they're using.
Okay, stop right there. Theoretical frameworks, gotta love them.
Yeah.
What lenses are they using to examine this whole AI and nonprofit healthcare landscape?
All right, so first up, we've got the resource-based view, or RBV.
RBV.
Yeah.
Fancy. And for those of us who haven't spent years in business school, what does that even mean?
In simple terms, it's about looking at resources, anything that an organization can use to its advantage. In this case, they're asking, can AI be more than just a tool? Can it be a valuable, unique asset that gives these nonprofits a competitive edge, especially when resources are tight?
So not just, hey, we have an AI, but this AI gives us a real strategic advantage in doing what we do. I like it. What's the next framework?
Dynamic Capabilities Theory, or DCT. This one's all about adaptability and innovation. They want to see if AI can help organizations be more responsive to change. Think about things like funding cuts, new disease outbreaks, just the general craziness of the world. Can AI help them sense those changes, react quickly, and even transform how they operate?
So AI as a tool for agility and resilience. Makes sense, especially in the world we're living in. Okay, what's the third one?
The Absorptive Capacity Theory, or ACT. This one focuses on how well organizations can actually take in and use new knowledge.
Because knowledge is only powerful if you know what to do with it. Right?
Exactly. So even if AI spits out amazing insights, these organizations need to be able to understand them, figure out how they fit into their work, and then actually act on them. It's not just about having the knowledge, it's about being able to use it effectively.
And this is all research published in English from 2019 to the present. Why that time frame?
Probably because things have been moving so fast in AI. The last few years have seen a real explosion in development and applications, especially in healthcare. So focusing on that recent period helps them capture the most relevant stuff.
Makes sense. So let's step back for a second and give our listeners some historical context. We've seen this growing trend of AI being used in all sorts of ways in healthcare. Diagnosing diseases, predicting outbreaks, even managing supplies more efficiently.
Yeah, and we've even seen AI systems getting as good as human specialists in certain areas, like diagnosing tuberculosis from chest x-rays or identifying abnormalities in radiology scans.
Which could be huge for underserved communities who might not have easy access to specialists.
Exactly. And the COVID-19 pandemic really highlighted the potential of AI for things like modeling disease spread and figuring out how to allocate resources.
Right, but this paper also acknowledges that actually implementing AI in low-resource settings, it's not a walk in the park.
Not at all. You've got infrastructure limitations, like unreliable internet access or limited computing power. Then there's the data issue. AI needs good data to learn, and in many cases, that data just doesn't exist or it's not representative of the local population.
And even if you have the data, there are huge ethical considerations around privacy and security. You can't just go throwing sensitive health information around without proper safeguards.
Absolutely. And then on top of all that, you've got this potential shift in funding, particularly with USA, which the paper specifically calls out.
So it's like these organizations are being asked to do more with less, and they're looking to AI to help them bridge that gap. It's a tall order.
It is, and that's why this scoping review is so important. It's trying to answer some really fundamental questions about what research is already out there. How is AI being used as a strategic resource? How do these theoretical frameworks actually play out in the real world? And what are the biggest challenges we need to overcome?
So it's about taking stock of where we are, figuring out what we know and what we still need to learn, which will hopefully lead to better, more effective AI solutions down the line.
Exactly. Solutions that are actually useful and sustainable for these organizations.
And the potential benefits are pretty huge, right? Improved healthcare for underserved communities, more efficient use of resources, better preparedness for public health emergencies.
Yeah, and for me, one of the most exciting things is the potential for democratizing access to expertise. Imagine a healthcare worker in a remote clinic who can use an AI-powered tool to diagnose a condition that they wouldn't have been able to identify otherwise, or connect to a global network of knowledge through an AI-powered platform. The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
And it's not just about technology, it's about building resilience. If external funding becomes less reliable, these organizations need to be able to leverage their own strengths and find innovative ways to keep going. And that's where AI could really come in.
Totally. And it's also important to remember that this isn't just a computer science problem, it's interdisciplinary. You need people who understand healthcare, technology, and how organizations work.
Yeah, collaboration is key here. So just to recap for our listeners, these researchers are going to go through all this existing research, pull out the key findings, and look for patterns and gaps in our understanding. And they'll be doing it through the lens of those three theoretical frameworks we talked about: RBV, DCT, ACT.
Right. It's about bringing structure to a potentially overwhelming amount of information. And they're even planning to create some visuals to represent their findings, which I always appreciate. Makes it easier to grasp the big picture.
And they're planning to share their findings widely, which is crucial. Getting this information out to the people who can actually use it is essential.
Totally agree. Research needs to make a real-world impact, not just sit on a shelf somewhere.
Okay, time for our novel notion segment. So based on this protocol, what kind of new, maybe even a little out there research ideas are you thinking about?
Okay, so one thing that really intrigues me is the idea of collaborative AI development. Imagine creating these AI knowledge cooperatives, specifically for nonprofit healthcare organizations working in similar resource-limited settings around the world.
AI knowledge cooperatives, huh? Sounds futuristic. Break that down for me.
So think about it. A lot of these organizations face similar challenges. Limited data, lack of expertise, tight budgets. What if they could pool their resources and work together to develop AI solutions tailored to their specific needs?
Yeah, but how do you get around the data sharing issue, especially when you're dealing with sensitive health information?
That's where federated learning comes in. It's a machine learning technique that allows multiple organizations to train a shared AI model without actually exchanging their raw data.
Hold on, back up. Federated learning, for our listeners who might not be familiar with it.
Sure. So basically, each organization keeps its data on its own servers, nice and secure. But they can still contribute to training a central AI model by sharing updates on how their local data is changing the model's parameters. It's like each organization is teaching the AI a little piece of the puzzle, but without ever revealing the full picture of their data to anyone else.
So you're creating this kind of collective intelligence, the shared AI brain that gets smarter by learning from the experiences of multiple organizations, but without any risky data sharing. I like it. What kind of challenges do you see with that approach?
Well, the technical side is definitely tricky. You need robust systems for coordinating the learning process, ensuring data privacy, and making the whole thing user-friendly for people who aren't AI experts. But if you can crack those nuts, the potential impact is massive. You could have AI models specifically designed for low-resource settings, constantly getting better as more organizations join the cooperative.
It's like creating a global knowledge network powered by AI. I'm sold. What else have you got?
Okay, so given the paper's focus on funding shifts, another interesting avenue would be using AI to actually predict those shifts and help organizations prepare.
Wait, AI predicting funding cuts. How would that even work?
You could train AI models on historical funding data, looking for patterns and trends that might signal future reductions. Things like changes in donor behavior, economic indicators, even political events.
So it's like creating an early warning system for funding disruptions. But what would you do with that information?
That's where it gets really interesting. Once you have a prediction, you can start thinking about strategies to mitigate the impact. Maybe it's identifying key knowledge that's at risk and finding ways to preserve it, or creating virtual communities of practice where people can continue sharing information even if their organizations are shrinking. You could even use AI to automate some of these knowledge sharing processes, making them more efficient and less reliant on traditional resources.
So in a way, you're using AI to make knowledge itself more resilient, less vulnerable to external shocks. It's like building a safety net for information. I dig it.
Exactly. And again, these are just early stage ideas. A lot more research is needed to figure out how to make them work in practice. But I think it highlights the potential of AI to really make a difference in this sector.
No doubt about it. So to wrap things up for our listeners, this deep dive has really shown us the potential of AI-enabled knowledge sharing to change the game for nonprofit healthcare organizations, especially those facing resource constraints.
And it's not just about throwing technology at the problem. It's about understanding the context, the challenges, and the ethical considerations.
Absolutely. So here's a final thought to chew on. As AI becomes more powerful and more prevalent in the space, how do we ensure that it's used in a way that empowers local communities and healthcare workers, rather than creating new dependencies or widening existing inequalities? It's a question we all need to be grappling with.
For sure. It's about using AI to create a more just and equitable healthcare system, not just a more efficient one.
Well said. And for those of you who want to dive deeper into the specifics of this scoping review protocol, we got the link for you in the show notes. Thanks for joining us on TalkTensors. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI.